All right. Okay, people. So I am joined today by Sean Garrity and Jonas Chernick. Chernick? Did I get that
Yeah,
right?
you got it.
Oh,
Sure. Yeah, that's
okay.
perfect.
Woo.
Perfect.
It, Sean is the director and Jonas is the writer and one of the leads of The End of Sex. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Yo, so man, I've watched the film today, really enjoyed it. So like you two, it looks like you've worked together a lot. So do you think that has helped build this, the way you're able to get these performances and to tell these stories?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, because Jonas and I kind of sprung from the same petri dish out here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and have worked on a bunch of films together, I feel like we have kind of a short form on set. We can be very quick and very efficient the way we communicate with one another. There was a behind the scenes documentary that got made about one of our films, and someone had filmed us, and Jonas had just done a take, and he came off the set, and I said to him, "Hey man, could you do the next one a little more?" And he's like, yeah, with the, and I was like, exactly. But he's like, got it, let's go. And then we did our next take. And so I think after you work together for a while and you find somebody that you sort of click with, it can really, I think, help you get further along in terms of depth and complexity. And sometimes you get what you're after kind of sooner, and it gives you more time to play on set.
So how did this story come about? Because we've had films and TV shows that have kind of dealt with this kind of subject, but I kind of feel you brought something different to it. But what made you want to tell this story?
Well, at first we actually we made another film together 10 years ago. It was also a sex comedy. And at the time, we had so much fun making that, and it was a success for us. And so we wanted to have another one ready to go because we thought people might be asking. And sure enough, they were. But when we were finished with that one, we kind of sat back and thought, yeah, I don't know if either of us really have anything else to say on this topic of sort of sexual insecurity. And so we put it away. And then we went off in our lives, and we both separately got married, and we both separately had children. And so when we came back to the subject matter 10 years later, we suddenly felt that we had a new perspective. We had other things that we were interested in exploring. And so we were able to kind of dust the old script off, and revisit it in a new way. And we added in a whole bunch of different elements and kind of figured out what we wanted to say. So we like to think of it as a bit of a film that we made, which had many all this similar. Emily Hampshire was in it. We had a lot of the same creatives, but this felt like, and as I was pitching this to people, the response was pretty unanimous when I pitched it, and people would say, "Oh, I hear you, brother." And so it seemed that anybody who'd been in any kind of long-term relationship or had kids related to this on some level, sometimes very deeply. So we felt we had tapped into something kind of universal here.
And you have the story. Then what kind of what were your kind of inklings for casting? Did you have a set group of people in mind, or what were you actually looking for?
I mean, when I put the cast together through kind of a long audition process, we did, obviously Emily was our first choice for the lead, and we're very happy that she agreed to come and make another movie with us. But after that, I actually am very interested in the audition process and the process of being able to work with actors in the audition room, because it helps me sort of see the material in a new way as well. Like, it's not like I feel like I'm not just auditioning actors like, would this actor fit the mold that I have in my head, but it's like we're kind of looking at the film and sort of going, oh, it could be this and it could be that. And every actor, like, you know, obviously actors that are getting up to a level, especially during COVID, of an actual audition, not a tape, they're all very, very good actors. And it's just a question of almost like a series of colors, you know, like if this character was played by this actor, then this other character should be this actor, to kind of create a cast, an ensemble that sort of works and has kind of a sort of a depth to it. So that's a process that I really, really love. And luckily on this one, Jonas kind of did it with me, because he was playing the role that he was playing. He was able to sort of sit in place of a reader and workshop some of these scenes. And sometimes in the auditions, like on set, we would sort of go off book and try things and explore different. So it helped us also kind of give us a sense of what the film could be and where we could push it further before we got into production.
Okay, that makes sense. And like, yeah, did you get everyone you wanted? Were there people where it just didn't kind of mesh up with schedules or anything like that?
I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio, he just happened to be unavailable. So we
so awkward.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing with him though, right? The guy's constantly like, yeah, I'll do it, and then when you actually, the dates come, he can't, whatever. But yeah, no, I absolutely got the cast that I wanted, and I was really, really happy with the way that I was able to bring people to the secondary roles that I think in a rom-com often lack depth. I mean, those roles are sort of there to pull out, you know, depth of your main characters and illustrate like one aspect of your main character, like the subtext or the subplot that they kind of inhabit. But I was really more interested in flushing those characters out a little bit more. And I'm very pleased with what Lily and Gray and Melanie brought to those parts. I think they're great.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it was nice that like the Kelly character and the Marlon character both had that next level of depth to them. Because when we first meet them, you think, right, they're just gonna be there to kind of, you know, move things along. But they actually then have their own kind of elements of the story and add those like compelling kind of things to, you know, Josh and oh my God, Emma's story.
Emma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was from a writer's perspective. That was, you know, obviously very deliberate. And I think when you're working with a theme that we're working with in this film, that as I was saying, it feels very universal and kind of touches everyone. Everybody's got their own take on it. Everybody's got their own perspective, philosophy, history, wounds. And so, you know, it was in many ways, it was easy to kind of lean into that and create these supporting characters, all of whom had their own relationship to love and sex and the things that we were, you know, so, and I will also credit, you know, one of the other advantages of having made several films with Sean is that the ones that I've written and he's directed, and there's been a few of them now, you know, he's a great he's a coach. He coaches me through the writing because he's going to direct it. You know, he knows it's got to be good, and he's not lazy. He won't let something go. So if something's not working, he knows, he pushes, and he knows how to push. He'll make suggestions sometimes, or he'll try to trigger he knows how to write as well. So each time we do it, we get a little better at that dance. And I credit him for knowing how to elevate my writing game. Sean has a saying he likes to use, that I bring the zany and he brings the painy. Because I think often when I'm writing comedy, my tendency is to go for the laugh and go for the joke. And he's always bringing it back to the humanity, always bring it back to the soul of what we're doing. And so I'm very grateful for that. And I really enjoy that process.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I really liked about this film was, for me, right, it felt that you're looking at these situations, but it's the communication, right? We're seeing this couple and they love each other, but they've just kind of lost that communication in certain elements of their relationship, and you become comfortable, so you don't put the effort into those certain kind of things, right? Which is that intimacy. And I thought that was, you know, really kind of a poignant thing. And then we've got these other characters, which I thought was great, because it's like when you're asking for advice of people and you think that person's got all the answers, but you forget that they might have their own issues, right? They may have their own insecurities. And then people you discredit, you think, oh, that person's just a bit of a joke, then has like the poignant, hey, it could be this. And you're like, oh shit, yeah. And I thought that really came out so well, you know, in the story.
Well, and I'm glad that you said that, because there's something that you said that I think is the thing that for me was kind of the most attractive about thematically about working on this project, which was this idea of being lost, you know, and this couple that in a way they remember what they were like as a couple, you know, before they had kids, but while they've had kids and while they've been raising kids for 10 years or whatever, they've become these other people without noticing that they've become other people. And the kids go away and they're like, great, let's go back to, you know, let's pick up where we left off 10 years ago. But of course they've changed. And I love this idea that they're, you know, maybe like they're butterflies yearning for their days of being caterpillars and going like, well, how come we can't do what we used to do when we were caterpillars? This is so annoying. What's wrong with us? And the process of kind of discovering that in a sense, life's kind of played a trick on them, which is, of course, is the trick that life plays on all of us as we get older.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, and then I think there was a lot of fun, and Jonas and I discussed it quite a bit. And I also discussed it with all the actors, that there was a sense that each of these other characters in their own way is also kind of lost in their lives. And there's something really, for me, interesting about watching characters who are very vulnerable, because they're all kind of groping around like we all kind of are in our own lives, trying to make sense of it all, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I think it's the heart sometimes that gets missed in like films, right? You want to add the zany, you want to be, it's just laugh, laugh, laugh. But when you insert the heart into it all, then that takes it to that next level. And I think that's when it really resonates, you know?
We hope so.
Yeah, and that is not easy. I mean, because I think we've learned through our own ups and downs and failures. I mean, it's one thing to say let's inject heart, but it's finding the right balance for the particular movie, and it's so easy to slip into melodrama or sentimentality, or nostalgia. I mean, there's a lot of traps, and so I think a lot of the times we watch a movie and it's not quite hitting the mark. We don't know why, and I think it's because, you know, there's all these different factors coming into play. So really, what we're trying to do, I think, is make sure that the stew is delicious and that all the ingredients are playing their part in the right way. And it's that's kind of a challenge. That's the fun challenge for me. That's what I'm trying to get that every time. I'm trying to find my way into that each and every time I'm telling a different story, you know?
Yeah. I mean, what you just said there is I feel is very interesting, right? Because, you know, when you watch a film that doesn't quite work, or a TV show that doesn't, it feels like it's missing something, right? Obviously, when they're making it, they're not looking to make something that is incomplete, right? So it's when you're in that process, do you automatically know that, you know, maybe there's something that's slightly missing, or do you see it when you're looking at the readies in the edit room? Like, when can you feel those things? Like, you know, in your experience?
Certainly for me, I do feel it at every stage. I kind of feel like when I was listening to Jonas is very positive, and he's very optimistic, and I am in many senses the opposite of that. And I hate everything. And so that helps us get to, but it's true, but so we'll have a line in a script or a performance on set or a cut in the edit suite that feels a little maybe maudlin or manipulative. And right away I'm like, oh my God, I hate that. And it's not helpful. So I hope sometimes I have the response or at least an idea to get us towards the solution. But sometimes I just go, well, I hate that. And it's up to my collaborators to try and help us find a way out of it. But I rely on those skills when I'm making a film. The ability to know maybe not necessarily what will be great, but certainly what sucks. Like when you see it and it sucks, I think it's really important to call it out. And then involve, you know, all of the other collaborators, because Jonas and I are always very careful to pick people, you know, who we can really collaborate with, who are very open and very interested in chucking ideas forward and you know, finding a way forward when it feels like it's not working.
Yeah.
And I would say that for me, I have to surround myself with people who I trust to tell me the truth. And so often, you know, especially in writing, I'll write a draft of a new screenplay and I'll be very excited about it. And then it takes the honest feedback of those who I trust to read it and go, it's not there. It's not, these things you're trying to do aren't working. And, you know, and Sean, of course, Sean and I do that for each other, and there's other people, but it's you have to have an openness. I mean, it's really key. I see this a lot in the sort of younger up and coming writers or filmmakers or even actors who are kind of blind, and they're heading towards they're blind to maybe the outside perspective on what they're doing. They get very caught up. I think as I'm getting older and as I'm making more stuff, I'm like Sean said, I'm more able to, I'm open to the idea that something I'm doing is not working. Whereas the defensiveness is gone. I just want to make something that doesn't suck. That's what Sean's sort of getting at. And if that means I have to swallow my pride, I mean, we've been on set before with, you know, a scene that I've written that Sean has coached me through, and we think it's great. And we get on set and we write for camera as a rehearsal, and Sean and I look at each other and we go, this scene sucked and it's not going to work. So now we've got, you know, 12 minutes to repair it. And there's a thrill in that. There's an excitement in that, in trying to figure out now, okay, well, what can we find that is good here, and what isn't working? And you kind of dissect it, and then you recreate it. And then, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, you make something that hopefully does not suck.
Yes, I can imagine not sucking is an important part of this.
It is. Yeah. It's crucial. It's key
motivator.
Now, do you mentioned that, you know, you made like a sex comedy 10 years ago, and then you were thinking of like doing another one right away. Now this is done, right? Do you think that this would have worked? You could have told this kind of story 10 years ago.
No way.
No way.
No, I mean, you know, for me personally, as I was saying, there's this theme that I was very interested in that I think I would have fought to the death against 10 years ago, right? This idea that these people have had a very active sexual life, and then they become parents, and that changes, and that as an audience, hopefully what we hope will happen is that they will learn to accept and embrace that change and become who they have become, you know, with grace. I think, you know, 10 years ago, I would have been like, no way. No, just because you have a kid, that doesn't mean you're going to have less sex. You know, and someone older than me might have been like, wow, I've got some really bad news for you. But I mean,
and that's what I can't. I mean, to be blunt, that's what I kept coming up against in the writing of that script. I mean, we put that script away. Sean and I mutually agreed after, you know, many years of writing it. We were just like, we haven't cracked this story. Let's put it away. And I kept coming up against that, is that I didn't really have the perspective or, you know, the life experience or the insight to bring a more enlightened or a more mature perspective to that scenario. I was not ready to let that go. And so, so coming back to it 10 years later, I think was the key. And I never thought that I would. I mean, that this project was gone. We'd gone off and both made several other films, and I never thought we'd circle back to make another sex comedy. So it was kind of like a delightful treat for us.
Yeah, I mean, how much does life play into your work? And not as much as, oh, this is an exact experience that you've had, but pulling on past relationships, like past conversations, past insights that can help you really redefine a story.
Yeah,
Go
a
ahead,
lot.
Sean.
No, I was going to
Take
say,
that.
yeah, a lot. I mean, you know, it really is. Sometimes, I mean, my wife is a psychologist, and she has often said to me that she sees me working through whatever it is I need to work through with my films,
Right.
and what I'm writing, and it's a really unique way to be able to sort of deal with stuff and to take it out of my head and put it on a page and, you know, let it fight with itself and form it into something that has some kind of meaning for me, and we hope when the film is done for audiences as well. But yeah, personally, if I'm not bringing something personal to it when I'm making it, it becomes very difficult for me to invest, you know, the emotion and the labor and the time and everything else that a film sort of requires. You know, I feel like if you're not bringing something personal to it, it's kind of like it's a Hallmark movie or something, right?
Yeah, but you understand that's dangerous, right? Because now if you make a film about a guy that's cheating, your wife's gonna be like, yo, Sean.
It's a metaphor. No, it's a metaphor.
It's funny you should mention that, because the next movie that we have that we just finished is about someone cheating. But that said, Kevin, I'll answer your question. I'll add to what Sean said, and that certainly as a writer and an actor, I think it's my job to bring my life to my work, and I think that's the goal. That's the objective. That's what people are connecting with material that they feel is authentic and that it has some life to it. So I'm all for escapist storytelling. You know, I love a big sci-fi movie as much as the next person, but the ones that I think are truly great are the ones that have something else happening within them, something that is, you know, resonating or familiar, because I think that's ultimately why we want to go sit in a theater and watch a story with a bunch of people, is so that we don't feel like we're alone. It's like, oh, that's my experience too. I understand what that experience is because I've had my own version of that. So as an actor, even when I'm doing something that is far removed from my own life, I'm always looking for what's my you know, what is my personal connection there? And once I find it, when I'm lucky enough to find it, you know, I exploit it. See.
Oh man, nice. I mean, actually, yeah, let's stick with that, because you know you write and you act. So how is that for you? Like when you're starring in a film that you've written, right? And like, do you know you're gonna star in it when you're writing it? You know what I mean? Are you writing that lead character for you, or at the end of the writing process, are you like, oh, actually, I think I can bring something to that? Or you just don't find someone who you feel is a good lead and you're like, all right, I'll step in.
No, I'm the only reason I'm a writer is so that I can be an actor, and so I can be an actor. And I'm yet to write something for somebody else that I didn't act in. I that would be so boring for me. Writing is agonizing. I don't love it, but I do love the dessert that I get at the end, the reward, which is that I get to play this exciting, complicated, messy character that I've created. And for me, that's the whole reason why I'm a writer. And you know, Sean has written several of his own films as well, and I will speak for him because I know he feels the same way. Writing is agonizing, but he gets to direct and tell a story afterwards. So it's a means to an end, and the acting is the joy for me, and the writing is the agony. And I'll continue to do that as long as people will continue to finance or fund movies where I'm, you know, playing the part. I'll continue to write stories for myself because it's just so much fun.
Okay. No, that's all good, man. You know what I mean? Like, why not? Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, there must be like a vulnerability with some of the stuff, right? Like, you know, in this film, you know, some of the things that you know, Josh is saying, and it's just like, where do you draw that from? You know, being able to kind of really hit those different emotions.
Are you frozen, Jonas? Or are you thinking? He might be frozen. He may be. You've frozen him with your question. Frozen him with fear. Well, I mean, certainly from a director's perspective, and I'm sure he would have a very similar answer as an actor. I think with all of these moments, and there's some very embarrassing, some very vulnerable moments in this film and some of the other films that we've made, we find that kernel, that seed of the common experience that we all have. And then, of course, as people doing comedy, we try to exploit it and push it to its most ridiculous extreme. I mean, there's a moment at the end of this film, which we don't push to a ridiculous extreme, where the character of Kelly has kind of a beat after Jonas's character of Josh has left her in a hotel room. And it's kind of a reflexive beat. And we sort of thought, I sort of thought that this character is so aloof and so confident and so sassy that we needed to see kind of a vulnerability from her just for a moment, so that we could feel like she was like us, and it's just that seed of it. But we give her this little 10-hour period in the film where she's been rejected twice, and being rejected is humiliating, like for all of us, for every human. And I think giving her that little beat really humanizes her and really gives her a place that all of us as audience members can kind of plug into her and say, oh yeah, she's like me. And so it is that little seed that I think is, hopefully anyway, universal, that we try to work into something bigger that then becomes fictionalized, and the longer we work it, sometimes very divorced from our own experience in terms of the details.
And now that I've had some time to think about it, my first love, when I was 20, I fell in love with a woman, and we were together for 4 years. And about 2 years into it, the sex started to suffer, and it was agony. It was really painful. And I remember us going through this extremely difficult ordeal where we were like, what's wrong with us? We're in our 20s. Like, why is this happening? We're virile and young and full of energy. We should be having sex all the time. And why aren't we? And so a lot of the stuff that I'm drawing from, which is interesting because I feel like this is a movie, for everybody, hopefully, but certainly it seems to be about, this sort of situation in our 30s or 40s. But as a 20-year-old, I kind of went through something like this. So there is stuff in here that's vulnerable. And I find, like Sean was saying, that his wife pointed out, I'm definitely helping to deal with and process some of these things, working through my own stuff. It's my therapy. I mean, I have my therapist. He's terrific. But I also get to write these stories and play these roles, and work through some stuff as I do it.
Now, do you use like references? You know what I mean? Like when you're thinking about the beats of a scene or the emotions you want to, yourself or other characters to hit, do you be like, oh, remember the scene in this film? Or do you use music, like put together a playlist to help people get into that kind of zone?
I don't use music, and I'm not often thinking about other films, but I will say that one of the great things about Mr. Sean Garrity here is that he is often referencing, it's usually obscure foreign films from the 80s and 70s that I have never heard of, but he's often drawing on this is the way it was done and it had this great effect. So we are calling back, but when I'm writing, I'm just kind of I kind of become the characters, and they're being channeled, and they're through me, and I hear their voice. I talk out loud. I speak in their voice. I'm not really thinking about other things, and I don't have music playing. It's always quiet. But I'm a student of film, and so I watch a ton, and I'm constantly trying to break it down. Why was that so effective? Why did that bring me to tears? Like, what is the mechanics of that? And then stealing liberally from those movies that were effective.
Oh dear. A couple of movies that kind of sprung to mind when I was watching this was like Zack and Miri Make a Porno, and I Give It a Year was a British rom-com.
I don't know that one.
Oh man, yeah, it had oh my god, Steve Merchant was in it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love him.
yeah. So it's a really good. So I can't think of who else was in it. It was a really good cast though. But yeah, no, those two kind of came to mind when watching this, because I kind of felt that, like with yours, it's, what I mean, you that baseline kind of notion of like, this is a thing they're trying to do or trying to work around, but then insert that kind of human element into it, so it makes it that something more. Which I think always works well.
I think for me, the rhythms of like Judd Apatow's best stuff is what's kind of, I think, playing subconsciously for me. I mean, Judd Apatow makes these films that are raunchy and surprising and shocking and very, very funny, but they're always about very real, very grounded human emotions, particularly, the big ones. This Is 40 and 4-Year-Old Virgin, Knocked Up. And so probably that's what's happening for me. I don't know if those are influences for Sean and from the director's chair or not, but I'd say as from a writing perspective.
No, and it's interesting that I think, when I'm making a film, I'm really thinking about the film itself and what is truthful and what we can. It's almost like I'm trying to read the film more than I'm trying to impose something on the film. You know what I mean? And trying to make all of those kind of moments work in a style that feels like what the film sort of wants to be. We do, however, I mean, both Jonas and I have this experience because, being an independent filmmaker means that you spend 95% of your life financing a film and then 5% of your life actually making films. After the fact, once we've we got a script that we're happy with and we have a treatment or a breakdown or a director's approach that we're happy with, then we're forced to think about, okay, when we take this to money people, what do we tell them it's going to be like? And there's a moment of kind of sitting back and saying, well, what could it be like? And of course, it always has to be stuff that made money. So stuff that it might be like that didn't make any money, we never suggest, because nobody wants to hear that, right?
Yeah. So you're not saying, it's going to be like Gilly.
No, not yes.
All right, that makes sense. Now, in that regard, like, what has the kind of the growth of streaming platforms brought to indie filmmaking? Has it opened it up a bit more for you guys?
I'm not sure that it has opened it up in the sense of getting a film financed and I mean, as of yet, I have not worked directly with a streamer, and what they seem to be interested in at the moment, anyway, up here, it does not seem to be something that I am developing. That said, the one thing that streaming does that I always notice, I don't know if you've noticed this, Jonas. You make a film, and I will put a Google alert on the name of my film and the name of some actors or something. So if it gets mentioned somewhere in the press, I'm able to sort of download the press and keep it somewhere. The day that it appears on streaming, like 1,800 pirate sites from around the world suddenly have the movie. It's everywhere. The second that, like, literally within less time than it takes to watch the movie, I'm always shocked. Like at 8 a.m. it's on the streamer. By 8:20, like 500 pirates have it. That's new.
Yeah, and like Sean said, neither of us have yet made a film directly for a streaming service. We've had our films picked up and aired on streamers, and that's been great. But for us, I think for now anyway, the approach is the same. Tell the stories we want to tell. Do whatever we got to do to find the money to tell that story. And if that meant a streaming service came in and said, "Oh, we'll cover this, we'll pay for the whole thing," I have no problem with that. It means a lot less searching for me, and so I do think, in that regard, it's a good thing. There's more content, there's more great stories, there's more great films, there's more great TV, obviously, than there's ever been. And as a consumer, as a person who watches incessantly and is always looking for the next great thing, I'm very fond of the direction things are going in. And I'm also very happy that we still, the theatrical, thank you, Tom Cruise, that the theatrical release is still a thing. I mean, ironically, this film, The End of Sex, is coming out on April 28th. and it's going to play on more actual screens than by far than any film, you know, Sean nor I have ever made. And that's beautiful, because it's a time where that is happening less and less for independent films, because it's not as much of a piece of the puzzle. But for us, we make films. I mean, Sean will tell you, and he's a purist, and we were in post-production on our next film, and Sean we don't know where that film will land, but Sean is insistent, as he should be, on let's make sure we're making this film for theatrical play. So at every stage of post-production, let's see, how does it sound in a movie theater? How does it look on a movie screen? As opposed to, let's build this for, you know, our TV screens or our computer screens. And that's the goal. We want to make films that people see in movie theaters. But I'm happy if they play elsewhere as well.
Watch it on your watch. Why not?
Oh my gosh. That yeah. I you know, small screens, like, there is something about watching it on a big screen. You know, I think there's that magic of going to the cinema that, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, the death of cinema. But I feel that cinema is such an experience that it won't ever really go away in our lifetime, at least.
Yeah, you know, and for this film, I actually my daughter found it actually. There was a play, I think, at the Golden Horse Film Festival. Did you know this, Jonas? It played in Taiwan.
Yeah, I did know that.
I did not know that. So this influencer in Taipei saw the film, and she wrote on her blog, that she couldn't help but thinking that everybody else around her in the theater had the same embarrassing, intimate experiences that she had when she sat there in the dark with them and heard them all laughing at the same places she was laughing. And I was like, yeah, there's a magic there to the kind of the collective experience.
Yeah.
Of watching a film with a bunch of strangers and all laughing at the same moments and all being shocked at the same moments and all being brought to tears at the same moments, that speaks to something, you know, in our humanity that I think is really encouraging.
I had the same experience when we were in one of the film festivals we were in, where somebody in the audience made that comment. They said that at first they were very embarrassed. They were shrinking back in their chair, but then as soon as everybody laughed at the same thing that they connected to. So as the filmmakers, I can tell you that going to film festivals, going to screenings, being at Q&A, seeing this movie play with, you know, 300, 400 people in a theater, whether it was at TIFF or in Dublin or at the Glasgow Film Festival, there's a different energy to it. It's received in a different way when you're watching it communally, which is, of course, the way motion pictures were meant to be seen originally. Than when it's received by a person watching it on the couch. And there's something very pure about that and encouraging. It definitely, like, we're not solving the world's problems. I don't think that, you know, what we do is important in that way, but we are bringing the world together. That's what I'll say. We're bringing the entire world together.
And
that's a great button if you want to end with that.
Quote unquote, Jonas Chernick claims to be bringing the world together. Nice.
World peace. Peace.
But awkward scenes with Jonas Chernick bring the world together.
That's right.
Yeah. Like you do say, you're not solving problems, but there is something about watching something enjoyable if you're feeling sad, right? It might not change the situation, but for that moment in time, it does uplift you. You know what I mean? So it's just like, there is a medicine in great storytelling.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that. I mean, not just because you said great storytelling. I'm gonna just point out that you did say that. But no, also because, you know, I mean, certainly me personally in my work, I always try to make my films, you know, about something. I want there to be, you know, actual meat at the core of it, content wise. But at the same time, I'm very interested in making all of my films engaging enough and hooky enough that people can just watch and start watching, and it carries them from the beginning to the end. And for 90 minutes, they're just in the world that I'm trying to create for them on the screen, and everything outside kind of gets left behind. You know, I really enjoy films that are not that are slow and deliberately paced and pensive, but I've never wanted to actually make one myself. I really like films making films that just, yes, obliterate the outside experience for people and have them engaged for 90 minutes.
Well, I can tell you that The End of Sex hits the mark. I enjoyed it all the way through. Not just saying that because you guys are in front of me. I honestly enjoyed it. And yeah, I feel that it's gonna definitely resonate with people. I think, you know, as I said, it kind of reminded me a bit of Zach and Miri, and you know, I give it a year. God damn, my memory's gone. And I think if people enjoyed those films, they're gonna love this one. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think you've done a great job, gentlemen.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been a joy talking to you, and it's been a lovely conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know I've got to let you go shortly. So if you can let people know how they can follow you and find you, that'd be great.
I have rejected social media for various reasons. I do have a underused Twitter account, so I'm at Jonas Chernick. There's a website out there, which, if that's still a thing that people go to, you can check that out. Sean, how's your social media presence?
Yeah, my daughter handles it, and so I have a teenage daughter, and she. No, at Garrity Winnipeg is my Twitter, and it might also be my Instagram. I'm not sure. Yeah, if people really want to find me, I'm probably hanging out at Bar Italia in Winnipeg. You know, come say hi.
Okay, and when can we see the new film? Like the one you're working on?
It's called The Burning Season. We don't know where and when it will premiere, but it will certainly be at some point this calendar year. So keep your eyes open. Maybe hopefully in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
All right, and hopefully you will come by and we can you know, shoot the breeze about that one.
Would love that.
Absolutely, would like that very much.
Splendid. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much, and keep making enjoyable films. That's all I can say, really.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
Take care.
You too. Take it easy.
Peace.
Bye.